Good morning, everybody. It is Man Coverage. It is March 13, 2022. It is Knoxville Nate and Mr. James Bonneville. How are you doing this morning, sir?
Any better I'd be guilty. So let's
Guilty,
get a. By the way, who
guilty
you
of a
wearing?
crime?
Well, there's that too as well. What jersey are you wearing today? Who you sporting? I see it's a Colts. I'm guessing.
Today we got Colts. We got a Mr. Philip Wheeler, linebacker, Georgia Tech. Played with the Colts for a little cup of tea, and now his jersey is owned by me. So
nice.
I've got some random ones, buddy. There's some people that you're like, whoa, I forgot who that guy even was.
I gotta say, today I'm on the Philip Wheeler train. I guarantee I probably know at some point. I just don't know him right now. It's Sunday. It's right after we're now in the daylight savings time. Oh boy,
Yeah, man. I lost an hour of sleep last night, and I'm feeling it. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Absolutely.
But just for the kids at home, Philip Wheeler was a third-round draft pick of the Indianapolis Colts in the 2008 NFL draft. Played for the Colts for, I don't know, about 3 years. Then he played Raiders, Dolphins, 49ers, Falcons, Cardinals, and then was out of the league. So he bounced around, but was a good player in college at Georgia Tech, two-time All-ACC linebacker. So we're giving him a shout out today with the game worn jersey. But we got a lot of basketball going on right now. We've got the conference tournaments. My Volunteers took out the Kentucky Wildcats yesterday, which I loved and enjoyed watching. My Dukies got their asses handed to them last night by the Virginia Tech Hokies, and I did not enjoy that. So there's my report on basketball. I'm not sure about this Duke team, man. I mean, one game I'll watch them, I'll be like, man, this team could win the title, and then I watch them play like last night, and I'm like, man, this team could lose in the first round. So,
well, I mean, that's the problem with the transfer portal is you don't have experience with these guys being with each other for a long period of time. I mean, It's just. I mean, heck, Theo John, I remember when he played up here at Champlain Park High School with another three-time all Pac-12 player in McKinley Wright, who now I believe is on the Timberwolves G League team. So,
yeah,
great. Both those guys were great players. I mean, fantastic.
Well, that's what you saw last night, man. I mean,
yeah.
Virginia Tech, those guys have been playing together for a while. And those guys have some cohesiveness. Those guys are confident with each other, and you could see that. And Duke, we've got a lot of freshmen. AJ Griffin is a freshman. Keels is a freshman. I mean, we've got three freshmen that play considerable minutes. Mark Williams is the elder statesman who's a sophomore. Wendell Moore's been there for a while, but it's just the team as a whole. Banchero is a freshman, so it's kind of young team all the way around. So it'll be interesting to see what happens once the tournament gets going. I'm interested to watch it next week. But we talk about college football more or less on this show.
Oh, absolutely. But I mean, there's some good transitions because, I mean, look at the transfer portal and offense and defensive line. If you need one cohesive unit, where if you're constantly bringing guys in and out. That's the hardest one to bring together because they got to work as one fist. And that's the one thing about the transfer portal that scares me that could affect other teams because everybody's worried about the receiver, the running back, the quarterback. Well, heck, if you don't, it all starts in the line of scrimmage. If that's blown up, doesn't matter what you got. So.
Yeah, it's true, man. And, that's why I think the transfer portal is good. I think
I do. Yeah.
These kids should be allowed to go somewhere if they've been sold a bill of goods. And when they get there, it's not what they thought, or, they don't like the coaching staff. They don't like the school, whatever it is. I think they should be allowed to transfer, but these programs have to understand that, there's still something to cohesion. I mean, look at the teams last year. They got to keep their units together, like Michigan and teams that hadn't had successful seasons in a long time. Cincinnati, obviously been good recently, but they succeeded last year because they had everybody together for a second season that they had the year before. Same with Michigan. They had fifth, sixth-year guys playing, and it showed. I mean, they looked like they were a team, and they looked like everybody knew what their job was, and work together, and it worked out good. So, that's something where if you need to add a guy, you need to add two guys, that's one thing. But when you're trying to put together and piecemeal a team through the portal, there's no guarantees that it'll mesh like you want it to for the start of the season.
Well, it's kind of like you look back at and Bill Snyder at Kansas State was a perfect example of this, because how he was able to balance this between getting like half his class in JUCOs and half his class in high school players. Because if you've got the moniker that you're all JUCO, no high school player is going to take you serious, and they're going to look somewhere else because they think you're going to get bounced by the time they're sophomore year, that they're always going to be somebody that we're going to recruit in over the top of them. So they're not going to take it serious. Now we've gone from the JUCO ranks to the transfer portal. I mean, have you seen any JUCOs getting signed? I mean, it's very rare that you do. It seems like the transfer portal has taken over the JUCO market completely.
Yes, it's definitely hurt some of these guys that go the JUCO route, and it's also affected high school players as well. I mean,
absolutely.
We've talked to several coaches. We had the head coach from Carrollton Day School on the show several months ago, and he mentioned that a lot of his guys that are D1 players, haven't gotten offers because there's not enough scholarships. You've got thousands of guys in the portal, and that's taking away spots for these kids that are seniors in high school. And that's one thing, how the game of football has changed. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens with those kids that maybe aren't getting the offers. Do they go to junior college? Do they go to maybe a smaller school and try and perform and get numbers and then work their way to another school? I mean, it's interesting, and it's going to be very cool to see what happens with it.
I think you're going to see some 1AAs get some players that would have been going to Power 5 schools, honestly.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's your power schools. I mean, I think if there was ever, there was ever a time James Madison making the jump to division, like to FBS, this may have not been the right time, because I think they could have benefited a little bit longer. I mean, it was the timing of it, of COVID, everybody getting extra eligibility, and on top of that, the portal. I mean, the way the portal blew up. I mean, you take one of those two things away, I think high school kids would be feeling the problem. But you've got guys that are 5th, 6th, 7th year that are still playing. I mean, I feel bad for these high school kids, these sophomores, juniors, and seniors, because they're going to feel it for the next few years.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, there's still, the free, that was another thing that we haven't really talked about, the free COVID year. That affects it too. I mean, you talk about the ability to transfer. You talk about the kids, missing out on scholarships because of the transfer portal. Well, yeah, and then there's these, 5th, 6th year seniors that got that free year, and that's affecting things as well. So
yeah,
it's going to be pretty cool to see how that all works out, and I'm very interested to see what happens with some of these players, because it's affected kids around here in this area. I'm just talking about a couple of kids from my alma mater that, were definitely D1 talent, but they missed some time on the field due to injury and kind of got looked over from some of the bigger schools. And it, I think all these things play a factor. So, and we'll see how that plays out. We also, have spring practice getting started right now. And that is, something that we have talked about, me and you, off the air, and is something that needs to be addressed, because spring practice, we're going to talk to Coach ANDRE GRIFFIN today, ask him, the benefits of spring practice, what spring practice is really for. But I do think in a lot of instances, this spring practice is going to be used to find out who the starter is. I think, in my opinion, one of the biggest things about spring practice is, what do we have? Who do we have? What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? Because then once you figure that stuff out, who are we as a team? Who are our best players? use that spring practice to figure out who the best guys are and what positions they should be playing. After that, then you can start installing the offense in the fall and start, tweaking things. But you got to figure out who your best 11 are on each side of the football. And it all starts with the quarterback position. It always does. And we've got some battles going on. And the first one that we need to address is up north of Ohio in a state just above them. Obviously they're both coordinators bolted. Their head coach tried to bolt, talking about, of course, Mr. Khaki Pants himself, Jimbo Harbaugh, who, is coming out in the media talking about how he's loving being at Michigan and how he never really wanted to leave. However, he interviewed for NFL jobs, and if he would have gotten offered one, he would have taken it immediately. And we all know that, and he knows that. But they do have a conundrum. They had this quarterback battle going on last year with the freshman J.J. McCarthy and Cade McNamara. They went with the veteran McNamara, not the greatest quarterback in the world, but limited on mistakes and a good leader apparently. They brought McCarthy in on situational downs. Everybody that's a fan of that team, and it's Michigan in case you haven't gotten it, they want J.J. McCarthy to take over. But it's not going to happen in spring practice because he's not really participating due to a bum shoulder. What's going on up there, James? Do you think that McCarthy has a chance to be the starter, or do they roll with McNamara one more time?
I think they're going to roll with McNamara again. You look at what they lose on their defensive side of the ball. Everybody's going to talk about Hutchinson and Ojabo quite a bit, but Daxton Hill was a stud. And I don't think people talked about him as much because they kept focusing on Aiden Hutchinson and the big game again had against Ohio State. And don't get me wrong, Aiden Hutchinson's a special talent, but what Daxton Hill did on the back end was ridiculous. And I think you lose those three guys. Sure, it's Michigan. They got some players, but I think they're going to have to slow things down and be a little more conservative this year. Otherwise, if they try to turn up the heat, I don't think they've got the personnel to do it. Sure, Ronnie Bell's back, right? He did not declare from what I remember.
I believe so.
I'm like 99.9% sure, but Grant, he is coming back from serious knee surgery. But that's always a good start because quite frankly, when Ronnie Bell went down in the Western Michigan game, I thought Michigan was in trouble. I honestly, here we go again. This may be the end of Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. And what do you know? They turned it around and made it work.
Yeah, he is coming back for
his coming back.
Year. Yes.
Good. All right.
Yeah.
So you got him at the X position. Offensive line, you have that center that they got grad transfer from Virginia. They still got a lot to deal with there, but they're going to be solid. They're going to be solid this year. I would still take Ohio State to win the East, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, me too. And but we'll see. It'll all play itself on the field. But my question is, why? If you think J.J. McCarthy is your future, if you think he's the better quarterback, why not play him? Let's talk about McNamara for a second. This is a guy completed over 60% of his passes, almost 65. He only threw for 2,500 yards, 15 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. That's a decent ratio, but it's not like this guy is a prolific, light him up kind of passer. I don't understand if you think that J.J. McCarthy is better, if you think that this guy is your future, why don't you start him now?
I think it's high risk, high reward. You go back to some of the stuff he did where like that Western Michigan touchdown pass where he threw completely across the field, across his body, and against a better team, that's pick six going the other way. And you start hearing the opponent's school song. He does a lot of things really good. He does a lot of things not so good. It's just, it's a risk reward type of thing. And I think Cade McNamara is more of a conservative pick. Yeah. Is he as live a game as JJ McCarthy? No, but are you going to see turnovers out of him? Not many. He is who he is, he's outside of you go back through Michigan coaches or quarterbacks outside of Denard Robinson. Can you name me one that was not fairly conservative? I mean, they all basically played within this box.
No, it's true. It's true. And I guess that's what they like about McNamara. You know, this is a guy that knows the offense. He runs the offense how they wanted to run it. And let's be honest, last year they were mainly a running football team. I mean, Hassan Haskins and company, that's the reason their offense clicked.
Yeah.
It wasn't because Cade McNamara was picking people apart. It was because that offensive line and those running backs had the run game working, and they were dominating and dominant throughout the season. And that's why they had the type of success they had, was because they ran the football. And then McNamara was able to convert third downs. He was able to be efficient and throw the ball when they needed to. But let's be honest, sometimes on third down or fourth down, they brought McCarthy in, in those crucial situations, even in the red zone. So I think, there is a chance, let's say McCarthy doesn't play a whole lot in spring practice. Let's say he comes back in the fall camp and just completely lights it up. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if he took the job from him in the fall. I mean, I really wouldn't. I think McNamara is probably going to be the starter, but it could happen.
Yeah, no, you're very right. But I mean, you look at the quarterbacks that Michigan is bringing in right now. I mean, you've got the Orji kid out of Saxe, Texas, and was it Jayden Daniels out of, and if I mispronounce his name, I apologize, out of Apple Valley, California. They're bigger kids. They're very athletic. I mean, we're talking 6'2" to 6'4", probably 220 to 235. I mean, they're not your, drop back 5 steps, grow roots, do 1, 2, 3 reads, don't have it throw out of bounds. I mean, these guys are dynamic players. And, once Cade McNamara moves on, I mean, now you've got 3 really athletic quarterbacks sitting in that quarterback room, and you tell me what they're going to do. They're going to get more, more aggressive in how they approach the offensive set. So
I think so. And it'll be interesting to see. I mean, it's kind of weird, this injury. Apparently he had the injury before the Orange Bowl.
Yeah.
But continued to play against Georgia, was actually pretty active against Georgia. I think they said that he threw, I think he's had like 17 passes.
Yeah, he played quite a bit.
Yeah, 7 for 17 for 131 yards and a touchdown. Also carried the ball 4 times for 24 yards the last game of the year. So, if this injury was so severe, why the hell was he playing the entire Orange Bowl? I mean, that's kind of confusing to me. But
it is the playoff, though. You know, I mean, you don't. Quite frankly, you'd have to be pretty freaking injured to keep me off the field. So
I get it. I'm just saying he hasn't had surgery, and that's kind of what people thought, was that this was going to lead to surgery in the spring, and he hasn't had it. So that's what's confusing to me. But we got a bunch of other battles, and I want to start with the team we've been talking quite a bit about here on this show, and that is the Auburn football Tigers. Obviously, they've had the days of our lives, soap opera going on down there with their coach, talking about firing him, talking about getting rid of him and then keeping him, and 20 different players have left the program, 5 coaches since the end of the season. It's kind of a disaster. And then, what do they do? Quarterback position. They've got TJ Finley coming back. He's the guy that was kind of the backup last year to their boy. What's his name? The guy who went to Oregon. What is my
Bo Nix?
Bo Nix. Yes, he's their starter. Been the starter for the last 3 years. And when he went down with injury last year, TJ Finley came in and actually played pretty well against Alabama. So you've got Finley, you've got Zach Calzada, who transferred from A&M, and then you've got the Oregon transfer, Robbie Ashford. So it's kind of funny. Nix goes to Oregon, Robbie Ashford goes to Auburn, and they just kind of switch schools. But you've got those 3 guys. Who wins the job, in your opinion, James? And is this really a battle or what? I mean,
here's my thoughts. There is who I think should win and who will win. Okay. And they're not the same. Who I think should win is TJ Finley. Yeah. What the coach needs down there is continuity. And TJ Finley does. I mean, heck, he had his back when everybody was throwing the kitchen sink at him TJ Finley had his back. And I get the feeling he may have that locker room too as well. Now, Zach Calzada transferring to A&M, from A&M to there, makes me believe that he's going to get the job. If he does, I think we're talking coaching search next year.
Yeah. I mean, why would he go to Auburn unless he thought that he could win the job there and be the starter? I mean, I just, why would you leave the situation you were in at Texas A&M if you didn't think you were going to win the job at Auburn? I mean, I really think he probably is. This is a guy played 12 games last year for A&M. 2,185 yards, 17 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Wasn't great, but definitely a pretty serviceable quarterback. So I think, in my opinion, it's going to come down to Calzada and Finley. I'm not that sold on Ashford, to be honest with you, and I'm not so sure he's really even in this race.
He's not. I put him completely on the back burner. It's really between those two. So
yeah. Well, let's talk about one that I really want to discuss with you, and that is in Clemson. Let's be honest, man. Clemson is all about winning. That's all they care about. That's one thing that I do give credit to Dabo Swinney and the program for, is that they want to win. And, we saw it before after Deshaun Watson left and, he was replaced by what's the quarterback's name, number 2, who went on to Missouri. I
even saw him in a hotel in Nashville one time. Kelly Bryant.
Thank you. Kelly Bryant, a guy that was a hometown dude, great quarterback, took him to the college football playoff, came back the following year, played pretty well, but, wasn't killing it in the passing game and got replaced. They were 8-0 and they benched him. And or what were they, 4-0, I think, and benched him and put Trevor Lawrence in. So they're not afraid to make a change. And obviously DJ Uiagalelei did not play well last year. He was a disaster. They were lucky to get to 9 wins, honestly. And now they've got one of the top quarterbacks in the country, and Cade Klubnik coming in. Who wins that job?
Honestly, I think it's DJU. And I put a lot of blame on how he played last year. Not as much on him, but more on the fact that offensive line has not been good. And it was really bad. I mean, you go back into drafts, and you and I talked about this, and I can't remember the exact number, but I think over the last 10 years, they've had like 1, maybe 2 guys on their offensive line drafted.
Yeah.
How is it that they were able to stop those Alabama defensive lines that, heck, everybody and their grandmother got into the NFL? I mean, and they were high draft picks. I mean, it showed. Not only that, but, I mean, it affected the running game, which people forget how much Clemson really valued that back-end running game, and they had no slot. The Hunter Renfrows of the world, the Amari, the kid that Rogers. I mean, you've had tight ends that lined up in the slot. That slot position helped out so much because it allowed the outside receivers to really get downhill on single coverage. And I if you don't solve those other problems, it doesn't matter who's starting at quarterback. You could have Pat Mahomes starting there, and guess what? The same stuff's going to happen. Do I think that DJU is going to work a little bit more on his physical game? Absolutely. But, I mean, he got the crap kicked out of him last year, both mentally and physically. I mean, you would thought they went 3-9, and they went 9-3.
True. And he did get the crap kicked out of him, but he was also unimpressive. I mean, 9 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. That's not good. He seemed like he was slow to me and out of shape. And, he had trouble rushing the ball. He had 100 carries for 308 yards. That's 2.9 a carry. That's not really impressive. Only 4 touchdowns. He's got to be better. And I agree with you. The offensive line was a joke. The receivers were not as good. There was problems all over the place on that offense. But if he doesn't get better, I could see Cade Klubnik, taking over for him and getting inserted, sooner rather than later if changes in his game aren't made.
I could see it. I think it would be a bad move. in all honesty. But I could see it.
Yeah.
But if you don't get that slot position figured out, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, everything had to be an extended play. I mean, you look back at that Georgia game. I mean, Jordan Davis might as well had a mortgage because he was living in the backfield. I mean, they weren't even trying, and you could just see it in DJU's face. He couldn't do anything.
No, he definitely was under duress at all times. And and from what I've heard, he's worked very hard in the offseason. He's lost some weight. He's apparently quicker and more nimble, and he's going to have to be unless that offensive line gets better real quick. And speaking about quicker and nimble quarterbacks, one that I want to jump to is the Florida Gators. Okay, they've got both guys coming back. They used 2 quarterbacks last year, and they've got both guys coming back. They got Anthony Richardson, Emory Jones, both being the starters. Let's be honest, you can't really put all of what happened at Florida last year on the quarterbacks. I mean, I don't know what happened to Dan Mullen. He seemed to check out completely and utterly. Wasn't recruiting, wasn't coaching, was the press conferences were a disaster. I don't know what happened last year, but now they've got both guys coming back, Anthony Richardson, Emory Jones, the Ohio State transfer, Jack Miller's in the mix. 3 guys. Who's winning in Florida? Who's going to be the starting quarterback next year in Gainesville?
I think it's 2 guys, and I think it's Anthony Richardson. Quite frankly, as soon as the firing went down with Dan Mullen, I'm shocked that Emory Jones didn't pack up the U-Haul and start looking for a job. I mean, Emory Jones is a very good quarterback, folks. I mean, I think he got put into a horrible situation when Kyle Trask, and it's not his fault or anybody's fault. It's just the way Kyle Trask got elevated and played really well. He was supposed to be the heir apparent, and it really affected a lot of things. And now you bring in a whole new team at the coaching staff. I think you got to go with Richardson. I would, if I was Emory Jones, I would be looking around, and quite frankly, I think I would look outside the SEC completely. I think after spring ball, I could see him transferring. I mean, there's gonna be guys on this list that we've been talking about that aren't going to get the job come spring, and are going to go shop themselves because there's going to be open slots everywhere again. Like, we're going to have this conversation all over again.
Oh, I agree. And I heard rumors that he was, looking at other schools when Napier was hired, was discussing potentially transferring to a couple of different places. And I'm not really sure why he didn't. Maybe he thinks he can win the job. I mean, let's be honest, at the beginning of the season, he was playing pretty good.
Yeah.
They had Bama on the ropes. They were beating Bama for 3.5 quarters. Looked like, this could be one of the best teams in the country. And then the wheels kind of fell off. And, as we all know, the quarterback gets all the credit when you win, all the blame when you lose. And I'm not sure everything had to do with him, but he's kind of a unique player, man. He's kind of a run-first quarterback, but he's a guy that can definitely throw the ball and can spin it if he has to. So
agreed. I'm a fan. I feel for him. And there's a lot of you have to have a special type of quarterback that doesn't allow the outside noise to get in your head, because how can it not, especially in the social media age?
Yeah. Well, there's one more I want to talk to about really quickly, and that is at LSU. Obviously, we heard the news this week. Jayden Daniels is transferring from Arizona State, along with all the coaches. He's taken off and moving on, and is going to LSU. They had Miles Brennan, who's coming back. Max Johnson obviously transferred to Texas A&M. They've got Garrett Nussmeier. Why would Daniels go there unless they told him he was going to be the starter, right? I mean, is he going to be the guy?
Well, not only that, you're forgetting about one guy, and that's Walker Howard, who's a highly touted prospect out of St. Thomas More, Lafayette. I mean,
yeah.
I think you're going to walk out of spring ball, and there are 2 names that are going to be walking. And I think the one that won't be would be Walker Howard. So I think you could take him off the list. That I think the coaching staff knows that he can wait, okay? That he'll be the backup. But 2 of the 3 of those are gone. And I would have a hard time seeing that Jayden Daniels doesn't get the job. But, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've seen the old coach at LSU do some crazy stuff before too.
Brian
That's
Kelly. Probably
yeah.
the dancing with the recruits is probably the craziest one I've seen.
Well, I'm still amazed how he was able to pick up that Cajun accent just by flying south. I mean, I am blown away. Or his unbelievably horrible dancing. You know, they got to stop that video because it's like going virally horribly. I mean, he looks like a predator, for Christ's sake. I mean,
I don't know what he's doing, but he has done a pretty good job recruiting and also getting guys through the portal. So, you know, we'll see what happens down there. He's been, you know, hard on quarterbacks, just to be gentle about it. In the past, you know, I mean, guys at Notre Dame, you know, took off. Everett Golston, Wimbush. I mean, he pissed off quarterback after quarterback up there. DeShone Kizer, you name it, and they all either, you know, left or transferred. So we'll see what happens there. I've got to believe Jayden Daniels is the front runner. I just think he wouldn't have transferred there unless he thought he could win the job.
Here's the part that I look at Brian Kelly and I question on that part is you're starting to hear all these stories about Jayden Daniels' mother having weekly meetings with the coaching staff at Arizona State. I mean, like, this is like the helicopter of helicopter parents. And now you're going to take that to Baton Rouge?
Yeah, I don't know, man. Could be.
I mean, he's regressed. I mean, he had an incredible freshman year. But since then, he has regressed time and time again. And it makes me see, especially what I saw after he transferred, I mean, that locker room, they weren't having a pity party from when we left. I mean, they were having a party like it was a good thing. So,
yeah. Well, hey, we've got our guest. I'm going to bring him on right now. We've got Mr. ANDRE GRIFFIN joining us on the show. I'm going to pop him on. ANDRE, you hear us, buddy?
Yes, sir. Can you guys hear me?
We sure can.
Got you, Coach.
How you doing today, Coach?
I'm doing good. Besides the time change, that gets me every year, man.
We were talking about that this morning. I was sitting there thinking I had an hour to relax, and then I looked at my phone and was like, oh yeah.
Yeah, that's Sunday night when, you know, everybody's going to sleep and you're just waking up to go to work. So, you know, but that got me. It got me pretty good.
It got me too, Coach. And, you know, we know that you are in a new location right now and gone over to Springfield, Ohio, and Wittenberg. What's been going on, man? You enjoyed, obviously you haven't been there a long time, but how you liking it so far?
Oh, love it. Been there 3 weeks. 3 weeks. We start, you know, the kids were out on spring break last week. So when we get back, we're going to do the old mat drills for about 2 more weeks. And then we'll get into, you know, the Division III spring ball. You know, for us, we just been recruiting, you know, recruiting. It's big on the missions on a D3 level, but also we got to get kids that fit our program as well. So that's what we've been doing. You know, I've been out there on the phone a lot. Just communicating with some kids and obviously getting them to get to know me, you know, on the phone because I didn't get to meet them when they were on their visits and things of that nature. So it's going well. It's going really well. You know, Wittenberg is a diamond. You know, it's a 100-yard indoor football field, 300-meter track around there. So the facilities is amazing. You know, top of the line weight room that they have down there. You know, I don't know if you guys remember Tamika Jeter. Now Tamika Williams, she's our head women's basketball coach. She's doing a tremendous job. And Brian Nagler is our AD, who won some WNBA championships. So, you know, that was very attractive to me. Obviously, I coached with the head football coach, Jim Collins, at Saginaw Valley State and also at Capital University. So, obviously, those things putting together and getting those kids and obviously recruiting in Ohio is big. So, you know, we're going to try to change it up and make a run for this thing.
Yeah. No, Wittenberg is a traditional power. And I as most of our listeners know, I played at Ohio Wesleyan, and man, we had trouble with Wittenberg quite a bit because that is a powerhouse and a great program and a great tradition. You know, as far as Division III spring practice goes, what does that all entail, ANDRE? And what are you guys really trying to get out of spring practice once it gets started?
Well, this year, it's a new change. We can have our helmets on. I don't know if you remember back in the day. you couldn't have helmets. So we can have helmets on for most of the park, and then we have 4 days with shoulder pads. So
Gotcha.
we're going to have a full spring practice. We're going to practice. Our special teams coordinator, I've talked to coach, and I asked him, do you want to do drills or do you want to put in the package? And we're going to put in everything.
Nice.
Kids, obviously there's sometimes on Division III you have kids that do other sports, with track and lacrosse, some of those things. So we're going to miss a couple people, but for the most part, with the energy that we're bringing down there, we're going to get a good practice in, 7-on-7 team, all the good stuff that we just don't have like a true spring game, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But we have 14, 15 practices, just like everybody else. And so it's going to be good. It's going to be really, really good this year.
Now, Coach Griffin, you've not only playing at Ohio State for Coach Cooper, but your various stops along the way. Culture's become a big thing in today's football. What kind of culture are you trying to install in the young men in your program as you develop here at Wittenberg?
Well, for me, it's not just about, obviously it's not just about football. For us, I'm a big believer in manhood. I was a high school football coach at Lima Senior in Lima, Ohio for 4 years, and I was a part of a program called CTAG, Closing the Achievement Gap, with Brian Miller, and we did an excellent job of building man. A lot of these guys, I heard you guys talking about, a couple parents meeting with the kids on a weekly basis. For a lot of times, they don't have a manhood or a male influencer, a mentor, things of that nature. So it's my job, and I truly, honestly believe this, to grow these guys as man and bring them together. We did we did some dodgeball before break. We do a lot of team building as far as talking to them, culture building on those types of things. And I think that's what's going to bring us all together as men and as a team.
It's funny you bring up the dodgeball thing. I remember seeing Coach Heupel doing that soon after he got hired too as well. And I was like, it's a brilliant idea. I mean, it's something so simple, but it actually works out some of the same skills they're going to be doing on the football field too as well at the exact same time.
Yeah, you can see people, the kids competing, when you can see the leaders stepping up, building, and they go against the coaches, and we get intense. Obviously we got some young coaches that just, I'm getting older, but, we get it in pretty good. So old athletic ability, good hand-eye coordination that's going on in there. And I've done that, even on the high school level, on all levels. And we also do, we haven't done it yet with Wittenberg, but, 3-on-3 basketball, just simple things that you can do to see, how they compete and how a leader steps up.
Yeah, no doubt. And Coach, we were talking, as you heard before, about, some of these battles going on in spring practice with the quarterbacks. And, it's a new world now with the ability to transfer and with the transfer portal and with these guys being able to switch schools and, go wherever they want. And me and James have talked extensively about it. And our other guy that's on our show, Rico McCoy, who played at Tennessee, he was for it too. And we feel like the kids should be allowed, to go to another school and not have to sit out a year. But it certainly has changed, the football world. And we just want to get your thoughts on it and what you thought when you heard of the rule changes, and what do you think it'll do to the game, moving forward?
Well, it's definitely bigger on a bigger level, on a Division I level, but it trickles down. I believe in the portal. Actually, I don't know if you guys knew that, but I actually transferred to Ohio State. I went to Littlewood University in St. Louis, Missouri, St. Charles, Missouri.
Yep.
And they're D2 now. They were NAIA at the time. So I transferred up, and I probably should have just went to Ohio State just because of my tradition, things that I grew up with. But I went for the money, things of that nature. But definitely a big believer in it. But the honesty, the high school, I don't know if you guys saw some of the stuff that Coach Prime, Coach Deion Sanders were saying. On the high school level, it really hurts them more than the college level.
Yeah.
Those guys aren't getting. I've seen. I was at a high school basketball game the other day, and these guys are going to the regional finals. And not one guy on the team has got a D1 offer. And that's what's trickling down. I know one kid that I went to Shaker Heights. There's a kid that went to Fairmont University, and now he transferred to Baylor. Think about that.
Wow.
You know, he went from D2 to one of the top 10 teams in the nation.
Yeah.
So it's definitely it helps, but it hurts as well. I did a study, right before I went to Wittenberg, and I think there was something like 2,500 kids in the portal, and there was only 25% of them was getting picked up. So some kids do not have homes, and people don't talk about that as well. A lot of kids haven't found a home. And that's unfortunate. And that's
it's crazy, man. It's and I didn't mean to cut you off, but yeah, that's what we were just talking about. There's not enough. There's only a certain amount of scholarships, and with all these people in the portal, there's definitely, Andre, I think some high school kids that are getting left out. Don't you think?
Absolutely. You see talent level, and some of them are just dropping. I know I'm good friends with Mike Jacobs down at Nora Rhine, down in North Carolina, and he was telling me, they picked up guys that should be D1 players, but unfortunately, some of the D1 schools down in that area were only picking up portal kids or picking up 4 or 5 high school kids. So those guys trickle down. Luckily, it's a good powerhouse down there that they can recruit, got great facilities, those types of things, great education, and can get those guys. But a lot of guys are out. They're going to JUCO, and some of these prep schools are building, but they still have to do a little bit of better job of promoting as far as the education piece of it, and that's what they're getting killed on. But they're getting lost, man. They're getting lost. It's good for the Joe Burrows. You see those things, and the graduate, and you guys know history. I don't want to go through all the history because I know you don't have time, but the graduate transfer was kind of what started the Russell Wilsons, those types of things that's really started the transfer, and those are great, because they graduated from the school, then they pick them up on the graduate level, but it trickles down. But I honestly, going back to your original question, I do believe in the portal, and kids definitely need to have a chance to play elsewhere, but I feel for some of the kids that don't get that chance.
Do you have a fear factor that like the lower divisions are going to become more of a feeder program for upper divisions because of the way, you have the perfect storms being set up right now where you have these COVID extra years plus the transfer portal at the exact same time. If you would have separated that out by at least 2, 3, 4, 5 years, I don't think there'd be near the problem with high schools today. But do you think that a lot like schools are going to basically try to re-recruit kids as if they're not supposed to, but at the D2, D3, 1AA, all the way up? What are your thoughts on that?
I never really thought about that, but when it kind of makes sense. Yeah, you probably are going to re-recruit some kids, and that happens before. I had kids, when I was coaching D2 that transferred or went to another school, and you just have good relationships with the young man, and bounce back, and you call them bounce backs, and they ended up doing really good for us, So yeah, you're definitely gonna have that, and unfortunately, I see some things on the lower levels with the, sometimes with the COVID, it kind of killed admissions. I don't know if you guys know that, but it killed admissions. So a lot of times, they're not just to the regular student, they're not reaching their goals as far as 5,000 or whatever their goals want to be in the school. So they're pushing for admissions now, and they're helping those guys out. So yeah, definitely, I have a kid, a couple kids that are transferring from D2s that are calling me all the time right now, just trying to find a home, get lost. So, and, those, like I said before, those are the kids that you kind of worry about the most. It's the ones you don't read about, that you don't know, that are lost, and we've had kids, and you guys are big on, I don't know if you guys are, but with the mental the mental depression, all this stuff, it's real. It is really real. These kids will call you and say, "This is my last chance, coach," and they're spilling their guts out to you, and you're trying to give them a home, so you have a lot of those kids out there that you really worry about.
Yeah, no, and I think it's even more difficult, at the D3 level, because you're not allowed to give, full athletic scholarships, but there are ways that you can help people. When I played, I got was called a Dean's Grant because I had good grades, and I got a pretty decent score on the SAT, so I was able to help get some of my school paid for. but I think it's difficult because you have to figure it out, ways to help the kids financially get into the school because, some of these Division III schools are expensive. And so it gets kind of tricky. So just talk to us a little bit about, your process of trying to get these kids in and identifying who can play. And then also, academically trying to get them into the school with the financial situation.
Well, another thing that's been happening since COVID is, people are they don't have to send their ACTs. You don't have to do that. So for me, I look at their GPA. That's the number one GPA. The school has their standards. So you might have a 3. If you have a 3.8, you might get this amount of money. A 3.5, 3.3, 3.0. Right down the line. So that's where you start off with. So when you're talking to the student athletes, that's what you go off of. You got to have a great admissions team, great academic team that communicate with the athletes, and you let them know this is what you're getting automatically. That's what you start off with. Make sure they have their financial aid, their FAFSA. When they get their FAFSA, they get more money. And also there's little scholarships, as there's little scholarships within the school, such as if you have an alumni friend, you might get an extra $1,000 here. If you write left-handed, people don't understand. There's so many little things. If you write left-handed, you might get an extra $1,000 there. Then go to your local area. There's so many. Like I have a scholarship. I have a foundation called ANDRE GRIFFIN Legacy Foundation. So I give $1,000, $500 here to a young lady, $500 to a young male at 2 different schools at Lima Senior and Shaker Heights. That's what I'm doing this year. So that's $2,000 between a young lady. So there's so many scholarships, and I did that when I was in high school when I worked in Lima Senior. So I found a lot of scholarships. So there's so much money that a lot of foundations and a lot of areas, fraternities, sororities, all that type of things that you can get. And then next thing you know, your fund is down. You still gonna have to pay a little bit, that, but you might be, with your loans and things of that nature, you might be at 5,000 to 8,000, in between that to 10,000. So that's what you have to do. And then, for finding the kids, it's just like any other level. You want to find the right kid that fits your program. You want to find a leader, and obviously, a baller. know. And I always have this rule: I'm gonna let them tell me no. I'm gonna recruit them, and you're gonna tell me no if that's what you want to do. You want to go to other school, that's fine, but you're gonna tell me no. So if Andre Griffin is the best football player, he ended up going to Ohio State, and I'm at Wittenberg, I'm still gonna recruit that kid.
Yeah.
So that's how I look at it, and and like I said, it goes back to relationships. So you can get guys, and it goes back to relationships. It goes back to the portal. It goes back to everything. Because like I said, some of the kids are getting left behind, and we have to do a better education, and now with the podcast and everything else to promote D3. I mean, D3 is great football. You're blessed to be on any level, D1, D2, D3, NAIA, no matter what. There's not a lot. If you look at the another stats of high school athletes, compared to college athletes, it's not a lot comparable around the nation compared to college. So, if you get blessed to get talked to and get recruited, we have to take advantage of that.
You've had a lot of, like, not only through your high school, collegiate, and your coaching career, have had a lot of mentors and people that you've looked to, even fellow players. Heck, even family too as well. Who are some of those people that were a big influence on you, that you use some of their advice and strategy today in your own coaching life?
Well, like you said, there's a lot, but someone just to be hot, that's hot right now, Stan Drayton, the new Temple head football coach. He came into Ohio State as the wide receivers coach with Coach Tressel originally. He's from Cleveland area. I'm from the Cleveland area, as far as where I went to school. And he, when we got to the Tressel camps back in, I call them the good old Tressel days, when we had three-day camps, and you had a big group of coaches that all worked together for years and years, and I was young. We really connected. And obviously he's moved on. to Texas and the Bears and all those types of things. But he was a really, really good mentor for me. And I'm so happy that he finally got his chance. I think it's long overdue in Temple. And he's going to do a great job with those guys, not just on the field, but off the field. So you kind of relate to guys that are you, if that makes sense. You know, if you see that guy, his background story, those things of that nature, you know, I think those are the guys that I really looked up to. And I'll tell you what, you know, you won't ever probably meet this guy, Brian Miller. I mentioned him earlier in my C-Tag. You know, he's, I mean, unbelievable, you know, with the manhood. I tell the story when I went into the class, I got hired as a head football coach and I was assigned, and you know how that goes. You're assigned to a program and what's called closing the achievement gap. And he's done a great, he's like not just a brother to me, but he's an unbelievable mentor, not just to the community of Lima, but to me as well. So, you know, he's done a really, really good job. And hopefully, you know, I'm trying to get him out here and get on some podcasts for people can hear his stories as well. So those guys are probably the main two. Obviously, my dad, my uncles, you know, those guys are always great mentors as well, just because of what they went through back in the 60s and 70s and how they fought through, you know, and all graduated. You know, they all graduated. Even my auntie, the youngest one of the Griffins, they all graduated from college, you know, and that was a big thing. That's 8 siblings that all graduated from college. And they're all doing, you know, the old school families, you know, they're big families, but they all graduated and they're all doing really good things. And my cousins are all doing good things now. So, you know, just that tradition, that's why the A. Griffin legacy thing, you know, kicked in. And, you know, so that's, you know, that's pretty much, you know, my story on mentorship. Obviously, I got a lot more, but.
Heck, we could have a whole show on it.
You could do a whole show on it. You definitely could do a whole show on it. You know, and I'm blessed to be on this show right now, just for people can hear the story and get it out there, because I think, you know, everything my last few years, obviously since COVID, you know, I know we keep bringing that up, but, you know, you find yourself in that moment of sitting in your house and like, okay, you know, what we're going to do. And, you know, the foundation has kicked off, you know, obviously coaching has grown and I've become a better man, number one, and definitely a better coach at the same time.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And that's all great stuff. I know that, you know, for me, at least playing football, you know, there's some people that, you know, they don't want their kids to play football. They think it's a dangerous sport, and it you know, it can be, but I know, and I want to get your thoughts on this, Coach, is I know that I learned a lot about life, you know, playing football. You know, I met people, the coach that coached me at Ohio Wesleyan, Pat Delaney, who was the defensive coordinator for me, he's still there. Yes. And he's been there for you know, a long time now. I graduated in 2001, and he was my defensive coordinator when I was there, and he's still the coach there. And I still communicate with him. And like you were talking about the alumni referral program, I try and help him out if he's got any kids down here in Knoxville or in Tennessee or Kentucky. I'll go meet with them and tell them, hey, I know this guy because I played for him. And you know, the relationships that you make, like a lot of that you've been talking about, people that mentored you and people that mentored me, I still stay in touch with to this day. And, you know, it just, football teaches you about life and working together as a team. And I just want to get your thoughts on, you know, what football can do for these kids beyond, you know, just athletically.
Football is life. And, you know, it made me, you know, who I am today. It's relationships. I mean, you have your, you know, you're on your team. I mean, I know you guys have Steve Belisari, you know, all those guys, those are my teammates, man. You know, when I see them, I smile and love them, you know, and obviously we did some good things and we had some fun at the same time in college, but you know, you're going to be with those guys. I mean, in college, I mean, listen, we got 6 a.m. workouts tomorrow, you know, then you're going to class and then you got your team workout, then you got a study hall. I mean, your team function, then you got a study hall, you know, so you're going to be with those guys. So you have to learn how to communicate. You know, that's the biggest thing is communication and open up. And you know, because you got guys from California to Florida, Ohio, obviously, you know, all over the place. And you learn different cultures. You know, so one culture, one guy from Miami could invite you down to Miami, and you grew up in Cleveland, so you're going all the way to the bottom. So you're seeing different things, and eventually those are going to be the leaders of the world. You know, they're going to be the leaders. You know, we probably, you know, I'm 43 years old. I didn't think I would be sitting here, you know, talking on the podcast, talking about, you know, my foundation and things of that nature. But that's what happens, and when you send things out to them, they give back. You know, I get so surprised when I say, "Oh yeah, I'm having a golf outing," and then next thing you know, you're getting sponsors after sponsors after sponsors. You know, so it's a blessing, and it's mostly your teammates, not just from college, from high school, the alumni, their friends that you might not have met, but they know you're a good person. So it's life, man, and you know, just going off of it's a dangerous sport, but every sport is dangerous. You know, you're not supposed to throw overhand. People don't. I mean, the natural motion is underhand, so. Just little stuff like that, you know. And I was talking to a young lady yesterday that played, funny thing, she played softball at Ohio State when I was there. We was at a party yesterday, and her kids are getting into the 4th, 5th grade, you know, that time when she's getting nervous. I was like, look, I seen you play softball. I'm not trying to get hit by a softball. I'd rather get hit by a person that I know is going to come and tackle me before I get hit by a softball or a baseball. You know?
No kidding. No kidding.
There's injuries in everything, anything you do. So, you know, you have to go out with an empty mind and learn. It's all about teaching. You know, the coaching has to get to where you want it to be. And obviously, at a young age, it's not. You have to keep stressing this. It's not about winning and losing. It's about, you know, getting better. You know, techniques and things of that nature. And that's how you protect the game. Is the teaching and the coaching.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, awesome, Andre. Thank you so much for coming on with us today. We really appreciate your time, and I hope you have a great season and enjoy being at Wittenberg. It's a great spot, and I think we'll be you know, talking to you again hopefully real soon and getting some updates, because I think you're going to like it there. It sounds like you already do, and I hope you have all the success you can in year one.
I appreciate you guys.
Hey, thank you again.
Really thank you so much, Coach. We'll be cheering for you, and we appreciate you so much for joining us today and sharing some time with us.
Thanks again. Appreciate it.
All right, buddy. Have a good one, Coach.
You too.
All right, that was pretty awesome, man. Get to talk to Coach Griffin, and man, he don't just talk about football, man. He knows a lot about life too, and that's the kind of people I like to talk to and hear from, because we are a football show, but you know, life comes first, and it sounds like Coach Griffin knows what he's doing. He's not just helping these young men learn about football; he's helping them learn about life, and
100%.
He's a really good guy, and
building that holistic person, you know, like we've talked about before in past shows. I mean, everybody sees that 3 hours when they're on TV or they're at the stadium watching that person, but they go through the exact same things you and I do on a daily basis. I mean, heck, we were talking about mental health issues during COVID. I mean, how many people went through the exact same things that they do? I mean, that's the one thing about football, a lot of things, it just brings people together. You know, people that may disagree about everything else under the sun, but on one specific Saturday or Friday night or Sunday afternoon, they come together for one purpose. And I think a lot of people really took that for granted pre-COVID, and I think it really is going to benefit us afterwards. So,
yeah, there's no doubt, man. I mean, football is something that can bring people together, and that's what I love about it. I mean, even you know, fans that are against each other, you know, they can set aside their hatred maybe of another school to realize that this is a game that we all love, and you know, we love our families, we love football, and those are the two things that if you can hold on to them, they can enrich your life in a bunch of different ways. So I think Coach Griffin does that at a bunch of different levels, man. He's a good guy who not only cares about his players and cares about his team, but he cares about the community that he's in.
Absolutely. He cares not only about the 4 years that they're there, but the 40 years after they've left.
Exactly. And that's what I was talking about with him, you know, with my coach Delaney, you know, he's still there. And that's so cool to me to think about a guy who's been at the same school for 30 years. And Coach Delaney could have gone anywhere. You know, I'm just being honest here. I'm not pumping him up because he was my coach or because I like him and I'm friends with him. He's a fantastic defensive football coach, and he could have gone to other schools. He could have taken a promotion and gone somewhere else, but he loves what he does and he loves the school that he's at, and so he stays there to try and make it a better place because he cares, and that's what it's about with these coaches, man. You can tell Coach Griffin cares and wants to help people, and that's pretty amazing in my opinion.
Well, I mean, heck, I look back at a coach like John Gallardi at St. John's, Minnesota, Division III school. Yeah. I mean, he coached at one place for from 1953 to 2012.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, head football coach, multiple NCAA national championships. I still think he's the all-time winningest coach across all divisions. I think so. I mean, not only do you love football, you got to love the institution, what it stands for, everything. And you don't see that today in this day and age. You know, I mean, he built the community, and I have friends of mine that played for him, and I can tell you right now, they would still, you know, if he was still with us to this day, they'd run through a wall for the man.
Yeah. No, that's where I think you can, truly make a difference is if you stay somewhere long enough where, you know, you can change an entire community. And that's what those guys have done. And it's really cool. And we're going to, this show just keeps getting better because we got great guests that we've brought on. And I think we've done a tremendous job finding people that are not only, you know, great football players and great football coaches, but they're great people.
Yeah.
And it's going to continue. Because we have a special guest coming on next week, former Big Ten Player of the Year, MVP, 1,400 plus yards, 17 plus touchdowns in his junior season, running back Pepe Pearson. We're hitting up this 97 Rose Bowl team because we've got a lot of guys that come back and have joined us from it. But Pepe is one of the greatest running backs of all time in Ohio State history, one of the greatest running backs of all time in college football and Big Ten history. And now he is an assistant coach and the running backs coach for Tennessee State University with Eddie George down in Nashville, working at the HBCU, trying to build that program up. And we are pumped up to have him, have him on the program. So we're excited for next week, getting to bring Coach Pearson on and really enjoyed hearing Coach Griffin today. So
looking forward to it.
All right, guys, everybody have a great rest of your weekend. Try and take a nap today to get that hour back. And love everybody and appreciate everybody tuning into the show and hope you guys will join us next week for Coach Pearson. Pepe Pearson's going to be on the show at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard. James? Keep your chin up.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. Man coverage, Knoxville Nate, James P. Bonneville. Talk to you again next week.
Same bat channel. Same bat.